In this video, we'll cover Reloading 101. We'll cover the required components and the required equipment to reload pistol and rifle rounds. First, we'll cover the required components to reload. You need to have a casing, so an empty cartridge. This is a 45 ACP, this is a 308 Winchester, and this is a 45 Colt casing. As you can see, it's just the brass part of the cartridge. It does not have a primer in this one. The primer goes right here. And that would be the next component, is the primers. The primers I have here are large pistol primers. This is the part that goes in that empty hole. This is what the hammer and firing pin strikes to ignite the powder inside the case. The next thing you'll need is powder. So this is tight group, used for pretty much all pistol uses, for all the pistol powder uses. And then the next component, so the powder goes inside the case, obviously, after you put the primer in the pocket at the bottom. And then the last piece, the last component, is the bullet. And this is a 45 Colt 200 grain lead bullet. And this would go on top, and then you seat it, and that's a completed cartridge case. And so those are all the components that you want to do. And in the next segment, we'll cover how to do each one of those parts: size and deprime the case, prime the case with the new primer, measure and fill the case with the powder, seat the bullet, and then cover some ancillary equipment. Before you reload, you'll need to get a manual, either a hard copy such as this, or you'll have to go online to figure out how much powder you'll need for the appropriate bullet you're putting on your case to load the cartridge. And so here's some examples. This is Hodgdon's 2008 manual. Of course, you can go to Hodgdon's and get all of their most current loads and their load data online. And so that's probably the easiest way to go. I've also, over the years, made a book. And in this book, I have all my loads in it. I have directions to all my loading apparatuses and equipments. And so I've just made this book over the years and compiled all my data and different loads. I've also saved articles from shooting times and guns and ammo and everything when they have ballistics notebooks out, and I've just accumulated all this and made my own loading manual. But you'll need some form of loading manual to tell you what your powder and what your bullet ratio will be. Before we start reloading, we'll need to clean our cases. So we'll go shoot, we'll gather the cases. So this is an empty case that you gather off the ground, and it'll have powder residue and probably some dirt and grime on it. So before we start reloading and get them into our dies, we'll want to clean them. And to do that, we're going to use the Frankfurt Arsenal case tumbler, quick and easy. It has some walnut media inside. That's just ground up walnut shells that we'll use as an abrasive media to clean the brass casings. And before you begin, you'll follow the directions on the brass polish. You'll put some brass polish in, you'll put the top on, you'll turn it on for a while, let it mix up, and then for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then stop, and then you'll take the cover off, and then you'll take your brass casings and you'll put them in, and you'll put the top on with the washer and the wing nut, and you'll turn it on and you'll let it go for about an hour or two until the cases come out shiny and bright. Once you are complete with that, you'll need to separate the cases and the media. And to do that, we'll use this tool right here. You'll put your cases and your media inside here. You'll close it up with the pin. You'll put it on a 2.5 gallon or 5 gallon bucket, and you'll spin it a few times, and then the walnut media will be in the bottom of the bucket, and your brass will remain in this separator. You'll open it up and you'll have clean brass to begin reloading. Another tool that you might want to get is the lead case trimmer cutter and locking stud. So this is the locking stud, this is the case cutter, and this is a gauge for the 308. You screw the case cutter onto the gauge, and then we're going to trim it. And to do that, we'll stick this in the mouth, and the trimmer will trim off the case to the appropriate length, because the gauge will end up hitting this case cutter locking stud and stop, and it will be cut at the appropriate length. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this locking stud into my drill, tighten it down, screw on the 308 size case shell holder. You'll put the 308 shell into the locking stud in the case holder, get it tightened down, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the drill so it'll be kind of loud, but you'll stick this gauge in, you'll get it going, and it will trim down the length of the case to the appropriate size. The next thing I'll do before taking the shell out is I'll deburr it and camphor the inside. So I'll camphor the inside, and I'll also turn it around and deburr it. This ensures that the bullet will go in there very easily, and it ensures that there's nothing as far as brass or anything on the outside of the ring. And this is a little tool you get from Lee as well. It works both ways, inside and on the outside. And that is case prep. For the pistols, I usually don't do any case prep for the pistols unless I need to clean out the inside of the primer pocket. But usually pistols such as the 45 ACP and the 45 Colt you'll see in the background, I pretty much just skip this stage for all my pistol rounds. I only do this for rifle. And also for the rifle rounds, I'll use some steel wool, some either double-aught or triple-aught steel wool, and I'll just put it on the outside of the brass, and I'll turn the drill on, and I'll show you what happens. That pretty much cleans the outside of the case, makes it bright and shiny. And so if you didn't have a case tumbler and didn't want to spend the $85 for that, some steel wool and electric drill and this little $10 tool set from Lee will clean your cases if you're just looking to do those 20 to 40 or so rifle rounds that you want to reload. So the next thing we'll need to reload is a press. And right here I have a Lee Classic 4-hole turret press, but there's other options as well. There's single stage presses, such Lee makes those as well, that go on the bench, and they're only one die at a time instead of 4 dies like this to do all the processes of reloading. You can also get a hand press just like this one, which costs about 30 bucks, and the dies screw into the top, and it's a single stage press just like it would be on the bench, except you just use both your hands to do it. The die goes in there, and you just use both hands to utilize the press. The other ones are progressive presses, which are pretty much just used for pistol rounds and not rifle. The turret and the single stage can be rifle and pistol. And so you'll need the press because you'll have to use the dies, which we'll cover in just a second, to deprime and size your case, to expand the mouth and dump the powder in if you're using pistols, and seat the bullet, whether pistol or rifles, and then either crimp it, or if you're using the rifles you don't necessarily have to crimp it. But we'll cover the dies in the next session. But you will need a press though to load, and those are your options: a single stage, a turret press, or a progressive press. And you can do some research online to figure out which one fits your needs. And I went with the turret press because it does rifle and it does pistol fairly quickly, and I can use it as a single stage press if I take out the auto indexing feature, which is this square rod. The progressive press. If you're just doing pistols and you want to shoot a lot of pistol rounds and not have to worry about rifle reloading, then a progressive press is the way to go, because you can load a lot of rounds in a short amount of time. But you'll also need a single stage or a turret press to load your rifle rounds in. So the reason I went with turret is because it does rifle and it does pistol. So next we'll cover the dies. The dies are where the casings go to deprime, to expand the mouth, to put the powder in, seat the bullet, and to crimp. And so I have two sets of dies here. I have the 308 rifle dies, full set of 4, and I also have pistol dies, and this is a 4 set of 4. These are carbide dies, so no case lube is needed for the straight case pistols, but you will need case lube for the rifle dies if you plan to use the full die. It is not needed. Case lube is not needed if you only use the neck expansion or neck sizing die. So for the pistols, for the carbide, I have this one right here. It has a little pin in the bottom, and that's used to size the case after it explodes and also poke that primer out, that one that's already been used that has the dent in it, pokes it out. The next die is the expanding die, and also it's hollow, so you can drop powder into it, so it expands the neck so you can put the bullet on top. And then also you can load the powder with this die. The next die is a roll crimp die and a bullet seating die. It does both those two options if you would like, or you could screw it out and only use it as a bullet seating die. And the reason why you would do that and only use it to seat the bullet and not to roll crimp is so you can use the factory crimp die from Lee, which this puts a factory crimp on it, and as well as it sizes the whole cartridge to ensure it feeds into your chamber well. For the rifles, you can actually load with just 2 dies. With this die right here, which is the full case sizing die, and it deprimes it, or you can deprime it and only size the neck if you use a bolt action gun. So one of these 2 dies will be needed. And then the bullet seating die will be needed, which is this die. So you could actually just use 2 dies for the rifles. But right here I have a full set, so if I use my automatics, my AR-10 or whatnot, I'll use the full length dies, or if I'm using my Bolt 308, I'll use the neck sizing die. And then I have the bullet seating die, which seats the bullet onto the rifle case. And then I have a factory crimp die for the 308, which puts a factory crimp on the cartridge after it is complete. And these in here also keep my gauge for case trimming, as well as the shell holder for the locking stud. And then this is used in all my presses for the cartridge. It goes right here on the press to hold your cartridge in place while you use your press. And so those are the dies, and either you'll need it for pistols or for rifles. For pistols, I recommend getting all 4, especially for your automatics. For your revolvers, you probably won't need the factory crimp die, although I do recommend it. But for the rifle, you can either choose only 2. Either it has to be a deep priming die, and then you will need the seating die, or you can purchase all 4. So after you've deprimed your case, and I'll grab one of these right here. This is a 45 Colt. So as you can see, I've already ran it through my press and sized the case and poked the old primer out, and using this die right here. So this is actually what's loaded into my turret right now. You'll need to have a way to put the new primer back into the primer pocket. And so most of your presses, your bench presses, already have that tool that is located on your press. And so most of the time you will not need any other tool. But if you were to use that hand press that I said, or you wanted to do lots of them at a time, this is a good tool that I recommend, which is from RCBS. Lee makes one as well. Most of the makers make them, but it's a priming tool. You use it with your hand. So you put the primers in this tray right here. You'll put the tray on. The primers will gravity feed into the bottom of this tool. You'll put the case on top. You'll squeeze the handle. The primer will go up into the primer pocket, into the case, and we'll load it. And so the way I use this is, I'll be watching football games on Saturday, and I'll have a bunch of cases that I've already deprimed through my press, and I'll sit around watching the football game, and I'll just go ahead and prime them. And I'll also use that hand press to actually size and deprime them while I'm watching, say, the first half. And in the second half of the ball game, I'll use the priming tool to prime the cases. But you will need a tool such as the press or this priming hand tool to prime the cases before you put your powder in and then seat your bullet. So after you have cleaned, you've deprimed your cases and sized them, you've put a primer in the primer pocket, now you'll need to put the powder in. And there's several ways to do that. If you have a press, such as this Lee turret press, it comes with a Pro Auto Disc, and I have this one upgraded to a Lee Pro Auto Disc that dispenses powder into the case when it sizes the neck or it flares the neck. Other options, though, if you don't want to buy a big press, you can use a scale such as this one from Lee that measures the powder grains, and then you can use this to dump it in. And you'll also need a funnel and a tray, so you can put the tray on top of your round. You can weigh your charge, you'll dump it in, and that'll fill the case. The other way you can do it is use a powder measure such as this one from Lee, and this one just attaches to the edge of your bench, and you'll use the powder measure to measure the powder charge, and you'll also need a scale to weigh your charge, and then you'll dump it in to the case like so. And then the other way you can go is through scoops, and you can buy a scoop package from Lee, and this one's called the Powder Measure Kit, and this comes with lots of different scoops of varying sizes, and you can just scoop the powder from your keg into the funnel into your cartridge case, and it comes with a scale to tell you how much to use per what charge you're going to use. You can also make your own scoops, and I've made some of these out of 380 cases, 9mm 45 or 40 cases, and I just file them down into the charge that I want, and I need obviously a powder scale, and then I attach a piece of wire onto the edge. It makes a very inexpensive way to measure your powder charge. And so obviously this is a very cheap way to go if you wanted to just load one charge all the time. After you've completely reloaded your case, so you've deprimed it, put the primer in, put the powder in, put your bullet on top, and seated it with your dies, you're going to have a tool that measures the case overall length, or COL. And calipers are the way you do that, and that ensures that your case overall length is not too long or too short, and that the bullet is loaded correctly to the specifications that it was designed to do. And so a pair of calipers are what you'll need, and you can get those. These are from Cabela's Simple 6/8 dial calipers. Another piece of equipment that you'll need is probably this RCBS Power Pull Kit, or several different companies make it. Frankfurt Arsenal also makes one. But this tool allows you to pull out the bullet and empty the powder if you make a mistake. And trust me, you will make some mistakes. And this has come in handy several times, more often than not, so you can put the shell, you've loaded it, you maybe don't know how much powder you put in it or did something wrong. You can put the shell in here, screw it on, hit it on concrete a few times, the bullet will pop out, the powder will pull out, it'll all capture in this tube right here. You can pull it, you can redo it over again. And so this is a pretty inexpensive tool to use that will help you out and fix any mistakes that you make. For rifle cases, if you decide to resize the entire case and not just the neck, you'll also need some case lube. And this is just case lube from Frankfurt Arsenal. Many other companies make different kinds, but you'll need this so that your cartridge or case will go into the dies freely and won't bind and won't get stuck into your dies, your sizing die.